with Epstein, we're seeing the exact same thing. And also with Diddy, that Epstein was protected. And there was one of the girls, one of the Epstein victims, the first one that came forward was 15 years old. And she told her parents that she'd been molested by Jeffrey Epstein, and her parents took her to the Palm Beach Police Department. And the Palm Beach Police just looked upon Epstein as this benevolent billionaire, and they were skeptical, but the girl talked about the inside of his home, described the inside of his home, actually described his anatomy. So the Palm Beach Police Department started a year-long investigation, and they were able to get 5 underage girls to come forward, and they got corroborating statements from 12 other people, but they knew of 17 additional underage girls that had been molested. And the Palm Beach Police Department served a search warrant on Epstein and immediately wanted to charge him with 5 counts of child abuse. But what happened was the case got taken away from them by the state of Florida. The Florida attorney, Barry Kirshner, and that was ultimately funneled into a grand jury. And I don't know if your listeners and viewers are familiar with how grand juries work, but grand juries are notoriously easy to corrupt because a special prosecutor is chosen, and he's the one that shows the evidence to the grand jurors, who are just normal citizens that have shown up for grand jury duty. And if he wants, he calls the witnesses and he shows them the exhibits. And there was actually a New York Supreme Court judge that said special prosecutors have so much power over grand jurors that they could get them to indict a ham sandwich.
Yes, and I certainly know that to be true, Nick. That's for sure.
That you would. And with the Franklin trafficking network, none of the perps were indicted. Actually, 2 kids were indicted who refused to recant. And with the Epstein trafficking network, I've got the transcripts of that grand jury, and there were 2 witnesses that were called. One was 18 at the time, and one was 16. And the one that was 16 had been molested when she was 14. And then the one that was 18 had been molested when she was 16. And the prosecutor is calling them prostitutes. These girls, you've got a 16-year-old girl who's very fragile, who went through this nightmare of being molested by Jeffrey Epstein, and the prosecutor is referring to them as prostitutes.
I have a question for all my friends and followers. Have you tried my wine yet? In the last 2 years, we've made tremendous progress with Franzese wine, and it's really all thanks to your support, and obviously because people are finding out we have a great wine at a great price. In 2025, we aim to become a national brand, and I want all of you to be a part of it. Every bottle you buy, every story you share builds more than a brand. It fuels a movement. The story of our wine is one of people having second chances and of lives being transformed. That's the truth. So go to my website, franzesewine.com, and get your bottle today. Salud, my friends. So what happened there, Nick, somebody from the top gave this prosecutor marching orders and how to present this matter to the grand jury. And therefore, was there ever an indictment? Did he get indicted on this?
What happened there was Epstein was indicted on 1 count of adult pandering, and that was it. But the Palm Beach Police Department, they had the 5 witnesses, only 2 of whom were called, but then they knew of 17 others. So they knew of 22 victims, underage victims of Epstein. And Michael Ryder, who is really one of the heroes in this story, he was the chief of the Palm Beach Police Department, and he took a lot of heat. He was followed, dead animals on his doorstep, the kind of stuff that evil people do. And he made so much racket about this. He became quite vociferous. He said this was one of the biggest breakdowns of justice that has happened in modern times. So the Justice Department said, we'll intervene and we'll prosecute the perpetrators. And Alexandra Acosta was the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida. And at that point, they had 34 victims. The feds were aware of 34 victims. And Alexandra Acosta said, and he's never denied this, he said that he was told to stand down because Epstein was intelligence and it was above his pay grade. That's almost like an exact quote. And when you get into that type of power, there's very few people that can tell a U.S. attorney to stand down. One is the attorney general.
When you say intelligence, were they implying that Epstein, and probably falsely so, Epstein had something to do with the CIA? He was an operative in some way?
Yes, there is a very dark corner of our intelligence that is involved in blackmail. I've written 3 books about it at this point. And political blackmail isn't something that's new. I mean, political blackmail has been around forever. We think of the founding fathers as saint-like, and there's been hagiographies written about them. But Alexander Hamilton was having an affair with a married 23-year-old woman, and he was being blackmailed by her husband. And then a muckraking journalist found out about it, and he outed Alexander Hamilton. And Thomas Jefferson and Hamilton really had a tremendous amount of antipathy towards each other. So the muckraking journalist went to Jefferson and said, I just outed Hamilton, and Jefferson had become president, and he wanted a position in Jefferson's administration. And Jefferson wouldn't do it, so he outed Jefferson as having sex with one of his slaves, Sally Hemings, and actually DNA has shown that.
I remember that, yeah.
So political blackmail is not new. J. Edgar Hoover was doing it. It's pretty well known that J. Edgar Hoover was doing it. But yes, there is a dark, malignant corner of our intelligence. It's KGB, Compromat. The KGB was obviously notorious for it, but people are naive when they think that our intelligence services wouldn't do that. And
well, let me ask you this. So is it possible, Nick, because we know that we have videotapes, or I don't say we have them, but they have videotapes in Epstein's mansion, and a number of people that were engaging in this child trafficking and engaging in sexual activity were high-level people, and he's got them on video. Is it possible, in your opinion, that this dark side of our intelligence agency might have had Epstein doing this so they can have blackmail situations over some of these people?
Absolutely. I've got no doubts about it. The thing about it is, Jeffrey Epstein, and this is what people don't get about it, Jeffrey Epstein was a college dropout from Coney Island, from a working class family of Coney Island. And I put his black book on the internet. So, and I got his black book in 2012. So I've done a lot of spelunking into Epstein. And Epstein was, some of the more powerful people in the country were being blackmailed by Epstein. But here's what people miss is there's no way, like Les Wexner was definitely being blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. And Les Wexner is a billionaire. And actually in 1987, he gave Epstein the keys to his kingdom, power of attorney over his billions. And Wexner was heavily hooked up to the Genovese crime family. And a guy named Frank Walsh, who had a trucking company, did a lot of the hauling for Wexner's various clothing lines. And he was definitely a Genovese guy. And
so are you saying too, let me stop you here, that Epstein made a lot of his money through blackmailing wealthy people?
He did, but he was protected because Jeffrey Epstein by himself couldn't blackmail someone like Les Wexner, who has connections to the Genovese crime family. Who's ever the blackmail mark has to know, if you touch Jeffrey Epstein, there's going to be retribution.
Exactly.
That's the only way that Jeffrey Epstein could blackmail some of the most powerful people in, not only in the country, but in the world.
No, I totally see that. You know, I didn't think that far into this, that he could have been, you know, a CIA operative, if you want to call him that, being used by the CIA to blackmail politicians and powerful people. You know, and those people were, you know, what is it with these people in power that are into pedophilia and into into sex with minors. What is, Nick? I don't understand that. What is going on here?
Well, pedophilia exists in all social strata. I mean, as we're talking right now, there are kids being molested in trailer courts. I'm pretty sure of that, or trailer parks. But the thing that differentiates the people that we're talking about is they molest kids with impunity. And I'll give you an example. I finally got to a blackmail photographer for the Franklin Network. There were a couple of blackmail photographers that I knew about, but I actually got one to talk to me. And I was trying to get my mind around it all. And I said, well, how does this work? And he was an unctuous guy, and not the paragon of veracity, but I do believe some of the things that he said. And I said, how does this work? And he goes, if you're compromised, it's like you're on a yacht, and it's a beautiful yacht, and it's a beautiful day, and you can have anything you want on that yacht. But if you decide to get off the yacht, the people on the yacht are going to make sure that you drown. So there's zero incentive. Once someone is compromised that way, there's zero incentive for them to come forward and say, I'm compromised. It's just not going to happen.
And let me ask you this too: they can get to the victims and somehow either buy them off or keep them silent in such a way, because again, they're people, they're money people, and they're people with power. So I would assume that a lot of that had to happen with Epstein. They had to buy these witnesses.
We're talking about very damaged young girls. One thing, the media has been completely malfeasant with the Epstein investigation. The media just has dug up salacious dirt. No one's called for any kind of justice with Epstein. But the thing about Epstein is human traffickers are vicious, vicious people. And regardless if they're Epstein or they're down the lower socioeconomic rung, human traffickers are vicious, vicious people. And a lot of these girls, and I've talked to a number of them, a lot of them are afraid of, we're not just talking Jeffrey Epstein, we're talking some of the most powerful people in the world. And there was a Epstein Victims Compensation Fund that was set up, and 225 victims came forward, and settlements were awarded to 150, and 8 declined. So, but Jeffrey Epstein trafficked underage girls for 25 years.
Did these victims that got paid off, did they have to sign NDAs? They couldn't talk about anything? They did, right?
Yeah, and that's really a horrible thing, is that because victims of abuse, they get better by talking about it, by telling their truth. But if you got a settlement from that, from the Victims Compensation Fund, you signed a paper saying that you couldn't sue anybody else. And that's a real travesty. And we don't even know really what the criteria was for getting a settlement. And I've been writing about child trafficking, or researching and writing about child trafficking, for about 22 years. And I've spoken at a lot of conferences. I mean, very big conferences. And I've gotten to know a number of psychologists, psychiatrists that work with trafficking victims. And I know 2 therapists, and one's really an eminent psychologist. And she was counseling her patient. She believes that her patient was trafficked by Epstein when she was under 10 years old. And I know another therapist who says that too. Now, both those young women now applied for compensation from the Victims Compensation Fund, but they were denied. And both those therapists think that the reason why they were denied is because the cover story with Epstein is that the youngest was 14 years old. And that is, and the government and media have been kind of inflexible about that. Although there's indications that there's articles that there were much younger girls than 14. There's one article that came out of the Virgin Islands where some of them were as young as 11 years old.
11 years old. This is, you know, Nick, what gets me about this, whatever you're saying is so true, because here's the deal. I know the power that the Department of Justice and the FBI has. When they wanted to eliminate organized crime in this country, they came out with us in New York. They came after us with a vengeance. With a vengeance, believe me. They're very capable. They have the resources. They have the money. They have the strength behind them. And they turn a blind eye to human trafficking. I mean, we have 300,000 kids now that have come across the border that are lost. That's human trafficking. We don't know where they are. The government doesn't care about it. They turn a blind eye to it. They don't make a big deal. They don't even want to talk about it. The media doesn't want to talk about it. What is going on? Is this just sick, demented people that we have in the highest levels of government?
It's truly unfortunate. I'll give you some numbers that really show you the degree of the problem. Now I'm talking CDC numbers, and many experts in the field think that it's higher than the CDC numbers, but the CDC numbers are nonetheless daunting. According to the Centers for Disease Control, 25% of American women were molested as minors, and 6% of American boys. And most people in the field will say it's much, much higher for boys, and it's even higher for girls. But that right there is over 50 million Americans have been molested as minors. So this is an endemic problem in our society. And I actually started an organization called Epstein Justice. And what we want is we're vying for a commission and we want two things, relatively simple things. We want to know why the government covered up child trafficking with Jeffrey Epstein. And we know who a bunch of the perpetrators are. We want the perpetrators to be prosecuted. Two simple things. We want to know why the government, as you know, when you cover up a crime, you're aiding and abetting that crime. So the government in the Epstein case, and I think in the Diddy case also, is guilty of aiding and abetting child trafficking. And there are all these perps running around, and those perps aren't going to stop. I mean, that's the thing about pedophiles, is they don't stop. So, and we know who a number of them are. The names of a number of the Epstein perpetrators have come out, and the names of a number of the Diddy perpetrators have come out. And
well, let me ask you this with respect to the Epstein case, and I don't know, this is stuff that we're hearing publicly. Trump said he's going to reveal the entire list of all the people that were involved with this Epstein matter. Is that going to do anything if he releases a list? What does that mean?
I personally don't believe that there's a list. I think it's apocryphal. I put the Black Book on the internet, and the Black Book has most of the perpetrators. It has other people that aren't perpetrators. But what we need is the FBI drilled Epstein's safe after he was arrested, and they took out anywhere from hundreds to thousands of DVDs.
Right.
And that's what we need. We need those reports.
Do you think they still exist, or they destroyed them?
I don't know. I tried to get them through Freedom of Information Act. After Epstein killed himself, they said that the case was closed. So I did a Freedom of Information Act, not on the DVDs, but on reports on the DVDs. And then the FBI got back to me and said that the case was ongoing. So 6 months later, same thing. I didn't want the DVDs. I FOIA'd a report on the DVDs, and then I was told that it was ongoing. So obviously, they're not going to listen to me. But there's enough evidence out there. The New York Times named 6 of the procurers in Jeffrey Epstein's network. And it would be like the New York Times naming 6 guys that were involved with John Gotti. I mean, the feds would jump on him in a heartbeat. And some of the perps even admitted, or some of these procurers even admitted that they were procuring young girls for Jeffrey Epstein. And nothing happened to them. And Maxwell was indicted on a number of conspiracies, as Diddy has been indicted on a racketeering conspiracy, but no one else has been indicted. So, I mean, why has Maxwell been indicted on a conspiracy and no one else has been indicted?
Let me ask you this, Nick. Do you believe that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself?
I mean, there were a lot of anomalies that night. The security guards were sleeping, or the guards were sleeping. The Epstein's cellmate had been taken out. The cameras were down. But I've tried not to focus on whether or not Epstein killed himself. I think that's kind of a red herring. What we need to focus on is justice for these victims. And I think that, I mean, you could certainly make an argument that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, but I try to avoid that because my purpose is to make sure that there's ultimate justice for Epstein's victims.
My friends, if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to give you an opportunity to become my partner in business. Franzese Wine experiencing tremendous growth over the past couple of years, and we're going to experience even further growth in the next few years. You're going to have an opportunity to be my partner because you've been supporting me, you've been my fan base, and I want to share this with you. So go to invest.franzesewine.com, and offer you shouldn't refuse.